I didn't mean to notice her the way I did. It was supposed to be a short visit, a polite conversation, not the kind that leaves your pulse uneven, or your thoughts circling back hours later. But the moment she turned toward me, the air seemed to tilt. Her name was Clara. Mid-40s, confident in that quiet way people get when they've already lived through a few storms. She wasn't trying to be graceful, she just was. A silk shirt rolled at the sleeves, hair pulled back but coming loose at the edges, eyes that saw through small talk. I was there because her younger friend, had asked me to help with something minor around the house. A shelf, maybe. I barely remember. What stayed with me wasn't the shelf. It was the sound of Clara's voice when she said, "She told me about you. Said I should keep my distance." Her tone was teasing, but there was something underneath. Curiosity, maybe. Or a warning she didn't fully believe. I laughed softly, trying to play it off. Guess I'm the dangerous type, then? She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me long enough that the silence filled the space between us. Her gaze moved once, from my eyes to my mouth, then back again. Subtle, but enough to set every nerve on alert. The room was still except for the hum of the ceiling fan. The window light caught in her hair. She was standing close enough that I could smell the faint citrus on her skin, not perfume, more like something that lingered from her morning routine. When I handed her the small box of nails, our fingers brushed. It was nothing, really, a second of contact, but she didn't pull back immediately. And neither did I. Her expression softened, as if she just remembered something. "You shouldn't let people's warnings shape what you think," she said. "Sometimes they're just afraid of what they can't handle." I wanted to ask what that meant, but my voice wouldn't come. There was something in the way she said it, not advice, more like a confession disguised as small talk. The shelf was done in minutes. I lingered anyway, pretending to double-check my work. She pretended not to notice. When she leaned closer to see what I was doing, a strand of her hair fell forward. Without thinking, I reached to move it aside, then stopped halfway. She didn't move. Her breath caught, barely audible, but I heard it. She smiled then, almost shy, though it didn't fit her. "You're too careful," she murmured. "That's how people miss things." There was no right response to that. I just looked at her, hoping she'd say more. She didn't. The clock ticked in the corner, too loud, too deliberate. And then a knock. 3 firm raps at the front door. She blinked, stepping back as if waking from a spell. The shift was immediate, shoulders straight, voice even again. "That'll be her," she said quietly. "My friend." I tried to smile, but something in her tone, the way friend sounded careful, made my stomach twist. The footsteps outside grew closer. Clara brushed a hand down her blouse, steadying herself, and whispered before opening the door, "Whatever she told you, forget it." The door swung open. Light spilled into the room. And the woman who had warned her, the one who had warned me, stepped inside. Clara didn't look at me again. Not yet. But I could feel her breath still hanging in the space between us, like a promise neither of us had meant to make. Clara didn't mention what happened that day. Not when I came by again the next week, not even when her friend, the one who warned her, was in the next room, pretending not to listen. She acted like we were just acquaintances, nothing more. But every glance, every accidental brush of skin told a different story. The strange part was, I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. The shelf was fixed, the reason gone. Yet she called, said something about a loose hinge, about needing another hand. The excuse was thin, but I didn't question it. That afternoon, the house felt quieter than before. Dimmer, maybe. The friend wasn't there, only Clara, standing by the kitchen window, sunlight spilling over her shoulders. "You came," she said simply, as if she'd been doubting I would. "You asked," I said. She smiled at that, not a full smile, but the kind that holds back more than it shows. While I worked on the door, she made tea. The sound of the kettle filled the silence. I caught her watching me once, her hand paused mid-motion, as if she'd forgotten what she was doing. When our eyes met, she looked away too quickly. "You shouldn't take me too seriously," she said after a while, her voice quieter than the clinking cups. "I've made a habit of scaring people off before they get close." I didn't know how to answer. There was a kind of sadness in the way she said it, not regret, just acceptance, like she'd rehearsed it long ago. "Does it work?" I asked. She tilted her head, half smiling. "Usually." I didn't tell her that it wasn't working now. There was an age between us, years she had lived and I hadn't. I could feel it in her pauses, in the calm way she measured every word. But there was also something familiar in her, the kind of loneliness that doesn't announce itself, just lingers like background noise. When she handed me a cup, our fingers touched again. This time, she didn't move away. The contact lasted longer than it should have, her thumb grazing the side of my hand as if by accident. Her eyes lifted to meet mine, steady, questioning. "You remind me of someone," she said. "Someone you miss?" She breathed out a soft laugh, barely there. "Someone I should have left alone." The words hung between us, heavy and unfinished. I set the cup down. She leaned closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath when she spoke next. "You shouldn't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you don't know better." For a moment, neither of us moved. The air felt charged, the way it does before rain. Then, slowly, she reached to take the cup from my hand, her fingers brushing the inside of my wrist, and that small touch said more than either of us was willing to admit. When she stepped back, her composure had returned. But the silence she left behind wasn't empty anymore. It was full, with everything we hadn't said, and everything we already knew. The next time I saw Clara, it wasn't planned. Her friend, the one who'd first warned me, had asked me to drop off a small package she'd forgotten. I almost said no. Almost. When I reached the house, the lights were low, the curtains half drawn. Clara opened the door wearing that same calm expression, but her voice faltered when she saw it was me. "You shouldn't be here right now," she said softly. "You didn't answer my texts," I replied. Her eyes flickered. A moment of hesitation. Then, quieter, I didn't know what to say. I held up the small brown box. "She asked me to bring this." Clara took it, fingers brushing mine. That same warmth again, familiar now, but no less dangerous. Inside, the house smelled faintly of rain and lemon tea. The storm outside had just broken, drops still sliding down the glass. I should have left, but she stepped aside, letting me in without a word. For a while, neither of us spoke. She busied herself with the box, pretending to check the contents. I pretended to look around, but my eyes kept finding her. Her hair was slightly damp from the rain. A strand clung to her cheek. I wanted to move it, to touch her again, but my hands stayed at my sides. "You still fix things that aren't broken?" she asked suddenly. "Only when I don't know what else to do." That earned a small smile. Then, silence. The kind that feels alive. Her friend's voice broke it. From outside. "Clara? You home?" Clara froze. Our eyes met. She motioned for me to stay quiet. The sound of keys, laughter. The door handle rattled. Without thinking, I stepped closer, too close. Her back hit the wall just as the front door creaked open. "In here," Clara called, her voice steady but softer than usual. I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, quick and unguarded. My hand, almost without permission, found her wrist. She didn't pull away. Her friend's footsteps echoed down the hall, slow, uncertain. We stayed perfectly still. My breath brushed the side of her neck. She closed her eyes for half a second, long enough to make me forget everything but her. Then a phone rang. The sound snapped through the air. Clara stepped aside, smoothing her blouse, answering quickly. "Yes, I got it." "No, he already dropped it off." Her friend's voice from the next room. "I thought I heard someone." Clara glanced at me, just a flick of her eyes, a silent plea, "Don't move." When the front door finally closed again, she turned back. Her hands were trembling slightly. So were mine. "You shouldn't make this harder," she whispered. "Then stop letting me in," I said. For a moment, we just stared at each other, two people pretending they still had control. Then she reached up, almost touching my face, but stopped an inch away. "If I cross this line," she said quietly, "there's no going back." I didn't move, didn't breathe. She didn't kiss me. But she stayed there, close enough that her breath warmed my skin, close enough that the space between us no longer felt empty. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant but steady. Inside, everything else had already begun to fall apart. It had been days since I'd seen her. Too many. Every message I didn't send made me restless, every hour without her voice somehow heavier. When I finally did go unannounced, uninvited, she was outside, sitting on the porch as if she'd been waiting for something she didn't want to arrive. The late light stretched across her face, turning her eyes a softer shade I hadn't seen before. "You shouldn't be here," she said again. But her voice didn't carry conviction anymore. "You keep saying that," I said, stepping closer. "But you never tell me to leave." She looked away, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a small tremor in her hand betraying her calm. "Because I'm old enough to know better," she whispered. "Then why do you look at me like that?" Her breath caught. She rose, trying to pass me, but I moved aside only halfway. For a moment, we were face to face, too close for either of us to pretend anymore. "You don't understand what this would cost," she said. "Maybe not. But you do. And you're still here." She let out a quiet, shaky laugh, half frustration, half surrender. "You think this is simple? You're 20-something, full of unspent years. I've already lost parts of myself I can't get back." "Then maybe I'm not here to take anything," I said. "Maybe I'm just here to see you." That silenced her. The air felt thick, the hum of the evening louder than it should have been, crickets, distant thunder, the faint rustle of leaves. She looked up again, and this time, didn't look away. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out, fingertips tracing the line of my jaw. It wasn't hesitation anymore, it was resignation. "You shouldn't make me feel like this," she said softly. "Then tell me to stop." Her hand stayed where it was. The world seemed to narrow, just the sound of her breath, the closeness of her body, the warmth of her skin. I could smell her faint lavender, something human, unguarded. I raised my hand to her face, brushing a loose strand of hair away. My thumb grazed her cheek. She leaned into it, not fully, just enough to undo me. "Someone will see," she murmured. "Then close the door." Her breath faltered. I could feel her trembling, not from fear, but from everything she was trying not to say. "You think I haven't wanted this," she said finally. "You think I didn't warn myself first? Then why are you still standing here?" She exhaled, slow, uneven, and stepped forward until the space between us disappeared. Her hand pressed lightly against my chest, I could feel her pulse through her fingertips. Then, just as her lips parted, a voice echoed from inside. Her friend. "Clara? You out there?" The sound sliced the moment in half. Clara's eyes closed, her forehead resting briefly against mine. "This isn't over," she whispered. Then she turned, steadying herself, voice calm again as she called back, "Coming." But her hand stayed on my chest a heartbeat longer before she let go. Clara didn't open the door when I came the next day. I waited anyway, leaning against the railing, listening to the faint hum of the street below. The light in her window flickered once, then went dark. I told myself to leave. I didn't. When she finally appeared, it wasn't from the front, it was the side gate, half open, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak. Just looked at me, then motioned for me to follow. We ended up in the small room behind her house, the one filled with old furniture and the faint scent of dust and citrus polish. The air between us was taut, wordless. "You shouldn't be here," she said again, but this time her voice was hoarse. "Then stop calling me back." Her eyes flickered, guilt flashing there for just a second. "You think I don't see what this is doing?" "I think you see too much," I said. She turned away, crossing her arms, shoulders tense. And then, she said it. "She knows." I froze. "Your friend?" Clara nodded once. She came by this morning. Said she heard us outside last night. Said I should end it before I make a fool of myself. Her words were sharp, but her voice shook at the edges. And what did you tell her? That it was nothing. Silence stretched between us. The kind that hurts to fill. Was it? I asked quietly. She finally turned, eyes glassy, defiant. You think I don't feel it? Every time you walk in this house, I have to remind myself to breathe. You look at me like I'm something worth wanting, and I know better than to believe that. Her confession hit like a slow punch, not loud, but deep. You don't get to decide what I want, I said. You don't know what it means, she replied, stepping closer. You don't wake up with people's whispers in your head. You don't get judged for wanting someone you're supposed to guide, not touch. She was trembling now, from anger, from restraint, from everything she was refusing to name. I took a step toward her. Then tell me to go. Her eyes met mine, steady, wet, defiant. I can't. The words cracked in her throat. We stood there, too close, the air sharp with the scent of her perfume and fear. I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin, the tremor in her breath. Her hand rose halfway, fingers brushing my sleeve before retreating. This was supposed to be simple, she whispered. It never was. Then, the sound of her phone buzzing on the counter. Her friend's name lit the screen. She turned it over, face pale. She said she's coming by, Clara said. She wants to talk. About us? She didn't answer. Just stepped closer, so close that her voice trembled against my neck. If she walks in and sees you here, everything changes. Then maybe it's time it does. For a long moment, she didn't breathe. Then, she reached for my hand. Not to pull me closer. Not to push me away. Just to hold it, like someone standing at the edge of something they already know they can't stop. The rain started again the moment I arrived, soft at first, then relentless. Clara stood by the open door, watching me through the downpour, one hand braced against the frame like she was holding herself in place. She didn't invite me in. I stepped closer anyway. You shouldn't have come, she said, her voice breaking on the last word. You told me that before, I said. And you're still here. The look in her eyes wasn't anger, it was surrender dressed as defiance. She stepped back just enough for me to enter. The door clicked shut, sealing us into a silence that felt too alive. Her hair was slightly damp, her breath uneven. She came earlier, Clara said quietly. Asked me what I was hiding. I told her nothing. And did she believe you? No, I took another step, closing the distance between us. The air between us seemed to hum. She didn't move away this time, her chest rose and fell too fast, her hand gripping the edge of the counter as though to steady herself. Tell me to leave, I said again, softly. I can't. Her voice trembled, and that was all it took. I reached up, brushing my thumb along the side of her face. Her skin was warm, trembling under my touch, and for a second, her eyes fluttered shut. This will ruin us, she whispered. Then let it. Her laugh came out as a breath, almost a sob. You think this is love? I don't know what it is, I said. But it's real. And that's enough for me. She opened her eyes, then really looked at me, and all the distance we'd built fell away in an instant. She stepped forward until her forehead rested against mine, until every exhale became shared air. The world shrank to that single point of contact, the faint trace of her perfume, the warmth of her body, the trembling in her voice. You'll regret this, she murmured. I already do, I said, smiling faintly. And I still want it. Her fingers found my collar, curling there, half pulling me closer, half holding herself back. The moment stretched, hearts misaligned, breaths tangled, and for the first time, neither of us pretended anymore. You make me forget who I'm supposed to be, she said. Maybe that's what you need. And then, she kissed me. Not soft, not careful, but desperate, like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. The world tilted, thunder rolling outside, rain beating against the glass. Everything she'd been holding in poured out, all the restraint, the guilt, the fear. It wasn't perfect. It was human. When she finally pulled back, her hand still rested against my chest, her eyes wet, her voice steady now. "We can't stay in this," she said. "But I'm not sorry." "Neither am I." For a moment, we just stood there breathing the same air, knowing this was both beginning and end. And in that stillness, something shifted, not broken, not fixed, just understood. We had crossed the line. And there was no more pretending we hadn't. Morning came quietly, pale light stretching through the curtains, the rain finally gone. I sat by the window, half-dressed, watching the steam rise from the mug in my hands. The house felt different now, lighter, yet fragile, as if one wrong word might make everything unravel again. Clara was at the table, hair loose for once, her bare feet resting on the chair's rung. She looked tired, but softer. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was low, almost shy. "I thought I'd wake up and regret it," she said. "Do you?" She looked at me, really looked, then shook her head. "No. I just don't know what to do next." I smiled faintly. "Maybe that's enough for now, not knowing." She laughed quietly, that familiar, restrained sound that always made me want to close the space between us. "You're too calm for someone who's about to be judged by everyone I know." "You care about what they think?" She hesitated. Then, with a small sigh, "I care about what it'll do to you." I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table, close enough that our fingers almost touched. I knew what this was when I stayed that night. And I'd stay again. That silence again, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was warm. She reached out, her hand brushing mine, hesitating before her fingers finally slipped between mine. Her touch was steady now, not stolen, not uncertain. "You make me feel reckless," she said softly. "You make me feel real." Her smile faltered, just slightly, the kind that says she's still afraid but too tired to keep fighting it. I stood, moved around the table, and she didn't pull away when I placed a hand on her shoulder. She leaned back against me, closing her eyes, her head resting against my chest. The smell of her hair, faint lavender and rain, filled the quiet. "You know this won't be easy," she murmured. "I don't want easy," I said. "I just want you." Her hand found mine again, holding it tighter this time. Outside, sunlight began breaking through the last of the clouds, streaking the room with gold. The storm had passed, and everything felt slower, grounded, real. She turned in my arms, looking up at me. There was no tension now, no pretending not to want it. Just two people who had run out of reasons to keep denying what had already happened. I pressed a kiss to her forehead, gentle, unhurried. She smiled against me, whispering, "You shouldn't have come back." "Then why are you still holding on?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. We stood there a while longer, letting the quiet settle. Her hands in mine, my chin resting against her hair, no guilt, no hiding, just breath and warmth and the strange calm that follows a storm you both survived. Whatever came next, it would be ours. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?